My possessive fiancé stood at the center of our engagement banquet and, in front of everyone, announced that I was carrying on some sordid affair with his sworn enemy. Ridiculous. I was born with a contact aversion. I can't let anyone touch me. I didn't bother explaining. Instead, I walked straight up to the stunned man and, rising on my toes, kissed him. Then I turned back to my fiancé and smiled sweetly. You're right. He really is better than you. Seems like he can cure my little problem. So, why don't you call off the engagement and let us be? Cameron's face darkened in an instant, his eyes so malevolent they looked ready to devour me. But he didn't explode on the spot. He drew a slow breath and plastered on that fraudulent smile of his. He seized my wrist with a force that made my bones ache. Addressing the circle of gawking guests, he spoke in a voice so gentle it oozed. My fiancé loves a joke, don't mind her. He yanked me to his side, fingers locking around me like a shackle I couldn't shake. For the rest of the banquet I became a soulless doll glued to his arm. He laughed and chatted with others while his grip tightened in pulses, reminding me what waited once the lights dimmed. The instant the last champagne flute was cleared, his tender mask shattered. Without a word he dragged me through the dispersing crowd and shoved me into the elevator that dropped to the subterranean garage. The doors slid shut, and in that cramped cage his fury finally burst loose. Sophie, you're growing a spine. I said nothing, only stared coldly at our reflection in the mirrored wall. He handsome, I beautiful, the perfect couple, and the most laughable farce in Eastbrook. The bell chimed, the doors parted. He hauled me out and slammed me against the icy roof of the car. Him? Caleb? He pinched my chin, forcing me to meet his eyes, contempt dripping from every syllable. A broken doll who can't stand a man's touch, and you think you deserve him? Broken doll. I'd heard that for 5 straight years. Because of my aversion, any male contact makes me physically sick. Except his. At first he called me special, called me pure. Then he grew bored and hurled the insult, broken doll, worthless. I studied his face, twisted with rage, and suddenly laughed. Broken doll? I echoed, locking eyes, enunciating each word. Then I'll swap him for someone who can fix me. His fingers jerked, sending a bolt of pain through my jaw. Say that again. Just then a blinding headlight sliced through the darkness. A black Bentley glided to a stop beside us. The window lowered, revealing a stern, angular face. Caleb, Cameron's nemesis. I had no idea why he was here, but it was my only opening. I wrenched free with every ounce of strength and, while Cameron gaped, yanked open the passenger door and slid inside. Meeting the fathomless eyes in the driver's seat, I forced out the calmest word I owned. Drive. Caleb's gaze rested on my bloodless face for a second, flicked to the livid man outside, then back to me. He asked nothing, he simply stepped on the gas. The Bentley purred up the ramp, Cameron's roar fading behind us. Silence filled the cabin. I watched the city lights streak past, my body still trembling from the struggle. Taylor. Caleb's voice cut the quiet. After using me, no tip for the driver? I turned to him. In the dim light his profile was sharp, carved from ice. I looked away, my own voice frosting over. I'll take Cameron down for you. That enough of a tip? The car rolled to the curb. He studied me, eyes calculating value. Finally he leaned in. Another man's scent, warm tobacco, not unpleasant, closed around me, and every muscle snapped taut. Hot breath brushed my ear. Deal. The words were low, dangerous. But before we shake on it, I need proof that you truly feel nothing for him, and everything for me. I went rigid as stone. His scent cocooned me, tinged with smoke yet oddly tolerable. Still, every nerve recoiled. I fought the instinct to jerk back and met his gaze inches from mine. How do you test that? My voice stayed level, not a tremor. Caleb's mouth curved, but the smile never reached his eyes. His hand moved, aiming for my wrist. Instinct screamed. It's the reflex etched into my bones. Every male touch equals nausea. He was faster, locking his fingers around my wrist. His palm burned. Through thin skin the heat poured in, and my stomach lurched with the familiar swell of sickness. I swallowed it. Not a flicker of weakness, I couldn't afford one. He watched my face like a hawk. In that suffocating standoff my phone vibrated violently. A video from Cameron. I tapped it. Frame 1, my mother lying in a hospital bed. A nurse steps in, expressionless, and shuts off the ventilator. The heartbeat flatlines, staggers, then goes still. Underneath, a line of text. 10 minutes. Crawl back and kneel, or tomorrow you can identify her in the morgue. Ice flooded my veins. Mom's heart condition needs expensive meds and machines. Cameron knows she's my only weakness. Unlock it. I shoved at Caleb, clawing for the door. I'll trade pride, trade everything, just not my mother. Caleb caught my arm, unyielding, plucked the phone, and hit redial on speaker. It connected instantly. Cameron's smug cruelty spilled out. Ready to beg? My patience is thinning. Caleb ignored the taunt. He glanced at me, shaking, teeth chattering, then spoke, each word a stone hurled onto ice. Quinn, threatening a woman through her mother, that's your best play? What a shame, your fiancé now belongs to me. Her family will be my responsibility from now on, too. With that he simply ended the call. The inside of the car sank back into dead silence. I stared at him in a daze, my mind a blank sheet. What had he just said? What, exactly, was he planning to do? Caleb tossed my phone onto the seat beside him. He pressed me gently back against the leather again and held me there, those deep eyes locked on mine. Don't be scared. I already sent people to look after your mom. Cameron won't actually do anything, he's just trying to rattle you. I've started the paperwork to have her moved to my own private hospital. After today he won't be able to get near her. My lips moved, but no sound came out. Panic, despair, shock, all of them churned inside my chest until they dissolved into one fragile, uncertain hope. I studied the man in front of me, the man I had approached on purpose, Cameron's sworn enemy. I'd thought I was only using him. I'd never expected that, at the moment I was most desperate, he would be the one to extend a hand. He watched my dazed expression, his own gaze unreadable. Now let's talk, he began, voice dropping even lower, about how you intend to repay me. Caleb worked fast. Within 30 minutes his assistant rang back to confirm that my mother had been safely transferred to the private hospital under his name, and that the doctors waiting there were among the best in the country. Cameron would never be able to threaten me with her again. When the call ended I pulled a flash drive from my bag and held it out to Caleb. 3 years of inside financial statements from Boss Holdings, plus the weak spots in several of their offshore projects. That should be everything you need. I'd prepared it long ago. I'd always known Cameron was crazy, and I'd been quietly building myself an exit. Caleb took the drive, didn't bother looking at it, and slid it into his jacket pocket. Excellent, he said, starting the engine. The partnership is officially on. From this moment you're my woman. Step 1, make sure the entire city knows it. The car halted in front of a private restaurant that looked outrageously expensive. This is one of Cameron's regular spots, he told me, unclicking his seat belt. Get out. Time to act. I drew a slow breath, pushed the door open, and stepped onto the curb. Acting, I understood. Inside, the dining room was quiet and softly lit. Caleb chose a window table and, with flawless manners, pulled out my chair. He ordered for us both, then began serving morsels onto my plate like a genuinely attentive boyfriend. Eat a little more. You're too thin. His gestures were intimate, his tone perfectly warm, yet I could still feel the cool, calculating tycoon beneath the surface. We were both playing parts, fighting the instinctive revulsion I always felt when strangers came too close. I lowered my head and cooperated. Predictably, it wasn't long before a familiar silhouette darkened the doorway. Cameron. He wasn't alone, a handful of business associates trailed behind him. His gaze swept the room and froze when it landed on us. The smile on his face stiffened. His companions followed the line of his sight and their expressions turned amused. Cameron muttered something to them, then strode straight toward our table. He stopped beside us, eyes drilling into me as though he meant to scorch holes through my skin. He glanced at our carefully arranged lovebird plates, then at Caleb's hand resting along the back of my chair, and gave an ugly laugh. Sophie, you make me sick. Without another word he seized the glass of red wine in front of me, but instead of throwing it in my face he slammed it down onto the white tablecloth. Crimson splashed outward, several drops spattered the back of my hand. I didn't move. I simply watched him. Caleb didn't flare up. He plucked a few paper napkins from the dispenser and, with exquisite care, dabbed the wine from my skin. Only then did he lift his eyes and flash Cameron a smile that could have graced a magazine cover. Quinn, that temper of yours still boiling? Haven't you received the engagement termination papers my lawyer sent over? Cameron's complexion turned a shade paler. Perfect, Caleb went on, then let me spell it out in person. From today Sophie is mine. Her affairs are no longer any of your business. Under Cameron's glare, so jealous it nearly spat sparks, Caleb twined his fingers through mine. His hand was warm, dry. For once I didn't feel the familiar, bone-deep chill. My body didn't recoil from him. I froze. Cameron, shaking with rage, spat out a final "you'll both regret this," rounded up his entourage, and stalked off. Quiet settled over the restaurant once more. Caleb still held my hand, he made no move to let go. I stared down at our linked fingers, a storm rising inside me. How was this possible? My condition, why didn't it work on him? He seemed to sense the earthquake in my head. His thumb brushed across my knuckles, the slight callus tickling my skin. Leaning in, he murmured against my ear, low enough that only I could hear. Your little phobia doesn't seem to apply to me. I yanked my hand away, heart hammering. How did he know? Had I been that obvious? Caleb studied my startled face, then reclined against his chair, gaze opaque. I have a full file on you, he said evenly. Right down to the contact aversion diagnosis you got at age 5. Blood drained from my cheeks. He'd known from the very beginning, known I was nothing more than a defective thing that couldn't endure ordinary touch. So why had he? Stop overthinking, he cut across my spiraling thoughts. I'm a businessman. I value your usefulness, not your body. Your reaction just now, though, very interesting. He lifted his wineglass and took a slow sip. Could turn out to be an unexpected ace in our little game. I said nothing, brain tangled. The rest of the meal tasted like dust. The ride back to my apartment was silent again, the city lights smearing across the windshield. All I could think about was why Caleb's touch hadn't set off my defenses. Could the disorder be selective? The car stopped at the curb outside my building. I unclipped my belt and reached for the door. Wait, Caleb said. With a lunatic like Cameron, you never know. He climbed out, came around, and opened my door. I'm coming up, need to check your place for safety. His excuse was solid, I didn't argue. I unlocked the flat and he followed me inside. The apartment was small, one bedroom, a modest living room, decorated with no particular style. Instead of sitting like a normal guest, Caleb swept the space with a single practiced glance. His attention locked on the smoke detector in the ceiling. He dragged over a dining chair, stepped up, and poked at the plastic cover. A moment later he cracked it open and extracted a black square no bigger than a fingernail. A pinhole camera. My breath froze. Caleb walked into the bedroom again, staring at a framed print on the wall. He lifted it down. Taped to the back of the frame was another pinhole camera. My stomach lurched so violently I nearly threw up. Cameron had wired my home for surveillance. Every move I made, every private moment, had unfolded under his gaze. Dressing, showering, sleeping. It felt like oily insects swarming over my skin, the disgust so cold I shivered. Caleb looked at my bloodless face, then tossed the camera onto the table. His voice stayed calm, steady enough to steady me. Don't be afraid. The more he wants to watch, the louder we'll perform for him. As he spoke, he advanced, step by step. I was driven into the corner, nowhere left to retreat. His shadow swallowed me whole. I knew Cameron on the other side of the lens was glued to the screen. Caleb bent his head, feinting a kiss. Our faces were inches apart. In his dark pupils I saw my own panic mirrored. But he didn't close the distance. He merely mouthed, soundlessly, to the invisible lens, "Enjoy the show?" His breath brushed my lips, light, ticklish. In that instant I could picture Cameron on the monitor's far end, foaming with rage, smashing the screen. A heady rush of revenge drowned every trace of fear and nausea. Afterward, Caleb methodically stripped every camera from its hiding place. He dropped them into an evidence bag. These prove unlawful entry and invasion of privacy. Enough to bury him. This is only the first shovel of dirt. I stared at him, emotions tangled beyond words. The man was cool, formidable, meticulous. He'd hoisted me from Cameron's abyss only to weave me into his own design. I couldn't tell whether that would save me or sink me deeper. Late that night I lay awake, tossing. My phone lit, a single message from Caleb. "Third drawer of your nightstand, an old school badge. Remember?" My heart jolted. I sat bolt upright. I yanked the drawer open. In the far corner I found a tiny box I hadn't touched in years. Inside lay a rust-eaten school badge. Faint letters read, Eastbrook Prep. The one I'd lost 10 years ago. Identical. My hand shook uncontrollably. That badge had slipped from my grasp during the kidnapping that begot my nightmares. The root of my strange disease. How had it ended up with Caleb? I dialed him instantly. He answered on the first ring. "Remember now?" His voice felt even deeper in the dark. "Who are you?" Mine trembled. A few seconds of silence. 10 years ago, in that derelict warehouse, the scrawny kid who sneaked you water and bread. That was me. An explosion went off in my skull. Sealed memories flooded back. The dank warehouse, blindfold terror, the thug's coarse curses, and a thin silhouette pressing a bottle and half-stale roll into my palm when the kidnappers weren't looking. That boy. Caleb? My father was the Voss family's chauffeur, he continued tonelessly. They coerced him into the plot. I was hidden in the trunk and saw everything. All these years the guilt has stuck to me. Guilt. My PTSD surged, yanking every buried frame to the surface. The captor's sour sweat, rope-slicing skin, the endless black despair. I hugged my head and slid to the floor, shaking uncontrollably. Stop, don't say more. Caleb's voice tightened. Sophie? What's happening? Time blurred until the doorbell rang. I flinched like a startled bird. Outside, Caleb called, Sophie, open up. It's me. I don't know how I staggered to the door. The instant it opened he rushed in. One look at me and his face changed. He reached out. Don't touch me, I shrieked, recoiling in violent revulsion. The aversion that had briefly ebbed now crashed back 100-fold. He was a living reminder of the warehouse rot. I gazed at him as if he were a predator, mistrust and terror mingling. In my chaos I blurted a line I'd forgotten I knew, words one kidnapper had yelled as police dragged him away that day. Don't trust Cameron. Even I froze at the sound. Caleb's expression darkened like a sudden storm. He stood struck by lightning, rigid. His earlier comfort died in mid-gesture. Realization dawned. The kidnapping had smelled wrong from the start. The abductors demanded cash yet engineered terror for terror's sake. They never truly harmed me, only atomized my ability to endure touch. And the one who rode in as my savior, teenage Cameron. Everyone hailed him as my hero. In hindsight, the timing was absurdly perfect. A play scripted in advance. Caleb re-examined every thread, and each one pointed to the same puppeteer. Cameron, then still a boy. My defenses collapsed under the onslaught of memory. I could no longer trust Caleb either. He clamped my shoulders, grip firm enough to jolt me back. Forcing me to meet his eyes, he spoke with urgent weight. Sophie, listen. That kidnapping, it wasn't random. Cameron, he's been engineering your life since you were 15. It took me a full 2 days to crawl out of the emotional wreckage. For those 48 hours Caleb never came near me. He only had his assistant deliver 3 meals a day. On the 3rd morning he finally appeared at my door. He carried a slim investigative file. The ringleader of the kidnapping that year received a wire transfer of $500,000, source untraceable. But right then Cameron's mother handed him a $1 million card as a reward for getting into an elite school. The thug who screamed at you died in an accident soon after he was released. Caleb placed the file in front of me, voice flat. All the evidence is circumstantial. Nothing will stick in court. But Sophie, we both know he did it. I stared at the cold black type until my fingers curled one by one. It was Cameron. He had orchestrated the kidnapping that ruined my life, then shown up wearing a savior's smile and kept me like a pet that belonged only to him. He didn't love my purity, he personally manufactured it. A wave of hatred surged through my chest, so huge it threatened to swallow me. I lifted my eyes to Caleb. The engagement banquet goes ahead as planned. My voice was calm, but the madness in my gaze scared even me. On that day I'll hand back everything he gave me, double. Caleb studied me, conflicted, then finally nodded. All right. I'll help you. The Voss family quickly announced our engagement to the press in the most high-profile way possible. The day before the banquet they sent over a haute couture wedding gown. Hand-sewn, diamond-studded, worth a fortune. It was Cameron flexing his power, and warning me that I would never slip his leash. My assistant hung the dress with ceremonial care. Taylor, it's breathtaking. I stepped forward and ran a fingertip across the cool silk. My skin is hypersensitive. Under the inner hem I felt tiny, hard ridges. I sent the assistant out. Then I fetched small scissors and delicately snipped the stitches. Microtransmitters. GPS chips. They dropped out one after another. I looked at the little pile and laughed a thin, icy laugh. This banquet wasn't a rite. It was the gilded cage Cameron had built for me. From this night on I would lose every last second of privacy and become his 24-hour collectible. I tucked every tracker back exactly where I'd found it. Then I dialed Caleb and put him on speaker, letting my voice crack with panic. Caleb, I can't take it anymore. Get me out of here. Cameron is insane, he'll never let me go. Caleb played along from the other end. Don't be afraid, Sophie. I'm coming. Head to Pier 3 Southside at 10 tomorrow night. I have a boat. We'll vanish where no one knows us. I sobbed my agreement. The instant the call ended every tear dried. I composed a single-line text and sent it to Caleb's assistant, an address and a time. Half an hour later I took out the trash. In the corner store downstairs I slipped a flash drive to a stranger posing as a customer. On it, every dirty secret Cameron had amassed over the years, illegal surveillance, coercion audio, the lot. Banquet day. I stepped into the perfect gown, diamonds flashing like captured stars, makeup flawless. Cameron arrived to collect me himself. His eyes shone with the confidence of possession. "Sophie, you look exquisite." On my father's arm I walked the crimson aisle toward Cameron. The grand was packed, applause thundered. Everyone believed this was the happiest moment of two perfect lives. Cameron took my hand from my father and squeezed hard. He bent, lips brushing my ear so only I could hear. "Tonight you don't leave my sight, my bride." I smiled back, sweeter than he'd ever managed. "Indeed, tonight neither of us is walking away." The ceremony began beneath soaring strings. The officiant lifted his microphone, praising eternal love in ornate phrases. "And now let us invite the groom-to-be, Cameron, to slip the ring of eternity upon his beautiful bride, Sophie." Cameron lifted the ring and gazed at me with rehearsed devotion. The instant the band brushed my knuckle, I yanked my hand away. I seized the microphone from the officiant. "Wait." The hall fell silent, every gaze snapped to me. The officiant froze. Cameron's face darkened. "Sophie, don't make a scene," he hissed. I ignored him. Facing the crowd, I flashed a radiant smile. "Before we exchange rings, let me share a sweet slice of everyday life with Cameron." I flicked a glance at Caleb's assistant in the corner. He tapped his laptop. The giant screen behind us burst to life. Instead of romantic photos, surveillance reels rolled. My bedroom, my living room, each frame filmed through hidden lenses. Cameron's face filled split screens, warped with obsession as he watched me sleep. He licked his lips while I undressed. He smashed furniture when the feed showed Caleb and me rehearsing my escape. Shot after enlarged shot, his contorted, covetous expressions. Gasps rippled through the guests. "Oh my God, that's her bedroom. How did Cameron get? He's spying on his own fiancée?" The Voss elders turned the color of old cement, desperate for the floor to swallow them. Cameron's complexion flickered between white and green, a living traffic light. But he was still Cameron. After a heartbeat of shock he recovered, even managed a chuckle. He lifted a spare microphone, voice velvety. "Sophie, you little prankster. Just a bit of kink we enjoy in private, why broadcast it?" The word kink slid off his tongue like oil. With urbane courtesy he signaled for the video to be killed, then turned to the stunned crowd. "Forgive the drama, friends. My bride is simply nervous." A touch of roleplay to ease the jitters. Girls will be girls, after all. In 3 sentences he reframed felony voyeurism as naughty foreplay, insinuating I was childish for flaunting our bedroom games. Some confused guests began looking at me with pitying amusement. I stared at his shameless grin and felt ice crawl down my spine. I played my second card. "Really?" I raised my phone, tapped a recording, held it to the microphone. The next sound that rolled through the speakers was Cameron's own voice, cold, venomous. "Sophie, I'll give you one last chance. Do you believe I can have your mother die on the operating table right now? Kneel." The roar echoed to the furthest chandelier. The grand sank into deathly silence. The audio clip detonated like a bomb in the hushed grand. Every mask, every scrap of decency, was shredded in that instant. The perfect smile on Cameron's face finally cracked. He stared at me, the pretense of love stripped away, replaced by naked, murderous madness. "Sophie," he snapped, lunging for the microphone, features twisted as he shrieked, "everything I did was for you. And you betray me." I watched him coldly, as though he were a circus clown. "For me?" My voice was soft, yet through the microphone it reached every ear. "You orchestrated my kidnapping so I'd spend my life in nightmares? That's your love?" Gasps rippled through the crowd. "Kidnapping?" Cameron's parents turned chalk white. You're talking nonsense." Cameron shrieked, as if I'd stepped on his tail. I didn't give him another second. Looking straight at him, I enunciated each word. 10 years ago, the derelict warehouse south of the city, 50 grand. Cameron, dare you say you had nothing to do with it? His pupils shrank to pinpoints. He hadn't expected me to know every detail. Suddenly he burst into shrill laughter, sharp and grating, like a demon scratching slate. "Yes. I did it," he confessed in front of everyone, guests, parents, ripping away his last fig leaf. "If not for me, those filthy animals would have ruined you. I saved you. I made it so you could only lean on me, belong to me alone. What did I do wrong?" He pointed at me, righteous fury ringing in his voice. "I just wanted you clean and entirely mine. I just wanted you unable to leave me. I love you, Sophie." "What's my crime?" He admitted everything, bribing the kidnappers, engineering my trauma while keeping my body intact, staging the hero rescue so I'd be shackled by gratitude. He had molded me into a flawless, broken collectible. That was his warped, perverse love. The guests were long past shock, they were terrified. They stared at Cameron on the stage as if he were a monster. Just as he lunged for me in his frenzy, bang! The grand's doors burst inward. Uniformed police flooded in. At their head strode Caleb. Long legs carried him through the panicked crowd straight to the stage, a running recorder in his hand. Cameron's demented confession had been captured word for word. Seeing Caleb and the police, Cameron froze, finally grasping that the fake elopement plan had been the bait to spring our trap. Unlawful imprisonment, aggravated assault, abetting kidnapping. Caleb stepped between us, blocking Cameron's line of sight. Cameron, your game is over. Two officers snapped handcuffs around his wrists. He didn't resist, only kept his bloodshot eyes fixed on me, a demon crawling from hell. Sophie. Pressed to the floor by police, his voice was a rasp. Even if I fall into hell, I'll drag you with me. They hauled him away. The law is waiting to bury him. Voss Holdings stock nosedived overnight on the scandal and soon filed for bankruptcy. The once invincible Voss dynasty was finished. As the victim, I gave the police every shred of evidence. When I walked out of the station, dawn had broken. Caleb was waiting under the pale sky. Morning light edged him in soft gold. He looked exhausted, but his eyes were bright. It's over, he said. I nodded. Yes, it's over. The decade-long nightmare had finally ended. The storm slowly calmed. Caleb handled every lingering mess for me. At Blackwood, my mother received the finest care and grew stronger each day. Everything was finally tilting toward the light. One sunny afternoon Caleb asked me to meet at a cafe. He sat across from me, stirring his coffee. Sophie, he said, more serious than I'd ever seen him. Cameron is gone. You don't have to act anymore. Give me a chance, please? He confessed. He wanted to stand beside me openly and care for me. I looked at him, my heart quiet. This man had appeared when I was most desperate, pulling me from the abyss. Strong, steady, he had given me a safety I'd never known. Even my contact aversion vanished only for him. It seemed like the perfect ending fate had written. But I shook my head. Caleb, thank you. Meeting his gaze, I spoke clearly. Thank you for everything you've done, but I can't be with you. His eyes dimmed. Why? Because our beginning wasn't pure. I used you, you used me. We were allies, comrades, not lovers. And, I paused, a bitter smile touching my lips, I need time to heal myself. Not leap from one cage into another, even if the bars are velvet. What I want is real freedom, to reclaim the self Cameron destroyed. Caleb was silent a long while. Finally he nodded, respecting my choice. All right, just one word. I'll wait. I sold every property, left my mother enough to live in comfort, and asked Caleb to watch over her. Then I applied to graduate school abroad. I boarded the plane out of the city. Watching the endless sea of clouds, I felt freedom and peace I'd never known. I thought that was the end of our story. I thought I would start fresh alone in a foreign land. I never imagined. A year later, in a lecture hall overseas, when the new visiting professor stepped to the podium, I would see that familiar, stern, handsome face again. His gaze swept the tiers of seats and landed on me, unerring. He smiled, a faint curve of lips. Asterisk thanks for listening. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate this story? If you enjoyed it, please like and share with your friends. We look forward to your comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more stories. See you next time. Asterisk.